going on, producer fam? Welcome back to Croco Nation. So today we're going to talk about some basic music theory essentials that I think are really important when we're making tech house. Honestly, you can apply this across any type of genre, but obviously my channel is mainly focused around house music and so forth. So the topics that we're going to be talking about are making sure you're in key, making sure you're on time. We're also going to go over some scales and how to build chords over those scales, basic triads, specifically major and minor chords. And then some of the bonus tips that I'm going to add on there are going to be relative majors and minors that you can use within your track, and then the types of chords that you can play within each key. So before we get started, I just want to say that this is geared toward beginner producers. However, some intermediate or even advanced music producers can benefit off of this. I learned all these things as a kid growing up playing guitar, and so these are some of the fundamentals that I transferred over to my tech house music production. So I really hope you guys get something good out of this. And of course, guys, if you'd like to support the channel, please consider subscribing and going over to croconation.com to check out some of our sound banks. All right, let's get the party started. All right, so once again, guys, this isn't the most exciting lesson, but let me tell you, it's going to come in so clutch, especially when you're running out of ideas. This is really going to help you. And honestly, even some advanced producers might not even know some of these things. I doubt it, but we'll see. You know what I'm saying? So the first thing we're going to be talking about is you got to be in key, guys. So for example, let's say you don't know how to play any instruments, or you're just relying on loops solely because you're just starting out. One of the things that you can do is find relative majors or minors for that track, right? So let's say, you find this wonderful loop. I think I went on Splice and I got this. There is this vocal that is in A minor. Let's say I really like this vocal and I really want to use this for a song. So let's go ahead and hear it.
I know what you're thinking, and I hear what you say.
So right away, I know that I'm in the key of A minor. Typically, if you buy good sample packs or sound banks, they're going to have the key right here. It says AM, which means A minor. So I go through my Splice app and I don't find anything good that's in A minor to drag and drop here to match the key, right? What I can do is I can play something that's a relative major to that minor, which is, I actually placed it here. It's going to be the key of C major. So C major is a relative major of A minor. So together they sound like this.
I know what you're thinking, and I hear what you say. When your spirit's sinking, just take my hand.
What's really cool is you can get these two keys and combine them. So you can do that for any key. And it typically works, depends, because sometimes, let's be honest here, some of these sound designers don't get their keys right? They get them mixed up. So you got to be careful with that too. So the next question is, how do I know what the relative major or minor is, right? So let's say you're not Johnny Maestro, right? And you don't know all the details and all the music theory in the world. What you can do is you can just Google it. Or even ChatGPT. What are we doing here? It's 2024. So you just put relative minor for G major. Let's say you're in the key of G major. You're going to put, what's the relative major? Look at me. What's going on? I had a long day at work, guys. Leave me alone. You're going to put, what's the relative minor for the key of G major? And it'll give you that. Let's say you're, in the key of E major. Bam, C sharp minor is going to be the relative minor. So the theory behind this is that you can use the relative major or minor for the respective key. So if you're in E major, you can use a loop or some sort of instrument, whatever you're doing in this key of C minor. That's really cool. So that's really going to allow you to expand some of your composition, right? You're going to be able to combine certain things together. And it might even increase your creativity. Who knows? These are good things, guys. Trust me. This is really cool. And you can mix and match vocals with like pianos or synths or bass lines in a different key, right? And it's going to give a different flavor or feel. So just keep that in mind. That's tip number one. What are we doing here? Great start. All right, so for this tip, most of you guys are going to know already, but gotta have some mercy for the beginners getting started. So let's say you go onto splice.com and you're going to find this wonderful loop and you're going to make a nice tech house song. I'm hitting my hat on this thing. This is good for us. Let's say you're going to make a nice tech house song. So you're like, yeah, I really like this loop here, this piano. So I'm going to arrange it in a certain way. And then you drag and drop it, but then, you want it at 124, but this thing's at 130 and it doesn't sound like it's on time. So it's going to sound like this. Wow, how terrible is that, right? What you want to do, and once again, guys, if you use good sound banks and good samples, they're going to have the BPM on here. As you can see here, it says 130. All we're going to do, very simple, is you're going to go to warp. You're going to put the BPM at 130. And especially if it's a melody or, some sort of lead or synth or whatnot, or vocal even, you want to put it at complex. You can do complex pro, but you got to watch out with the formants and all that stuff if you're going to mess with the pitch. But that's a different story for a different day. So we're going to keep it at complex and, we're just going to adjust it. And what do you know? Fits perfectly in the measure here. And now it's going to be on time. All right, so let's switch up the scenario here. Let's say that you do get a sample that doesn't have the BPM like these. Easy money. All you have to do is go up here to the top left-hand corner and click tap, 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 tap to the beat. And guess what? It gives you a good estimate. And then you just fine-tune little by little on how to get things on time. You know what I'm saying? So the next topic is going to be scales. Scales are going to be really important, guys. I should have probably put this after being in key point earlier, but we're already here. What are we doing? So it's really important to be in key. What does it mean to be in key? It means you're hitting the right notes within that key. So for example, let me explain visually. So we are here in Ableton, and this is Ableton 11. I know 11 has it, but I'm not sure if 10 or any other versions below don't have this feature here. But when you create MIDI, on the left-hand side here, you're able to click scale, and it'll give you the notes that you want to hit. Like, for example, the default one is C major. And anything in yellow here means that you can hit those notes and you'll be in the key of C major. Now, if it's grayed out, that means you're not supposed to hit that note. That doesn't mean you're in key. So like when you're creating melodies or even chords, you want to make sure that you're in key, right? So these are the possible notes that you can hit. All you would have to do is just mess around with the timing and the length of the note. These longer or fuller keys is the root note, right? C. There's a C5. C4, and you can switch it. Typically, the most common keys, I should say, are going to be major, minor, and pentatonic, minor pentatonic, typically. There's major pentatonic, which is cool too, for the happier, bluesy kind of vibe. But when it comes to melodies, highly recommend pentatonic. It's the most popular scale, I'd say, when it comes to melodies, using blues, rock, pop music, and so forth. Once you click this, like for example, let's say you're doing D minor pentatonic, these are the notes that you can hit, right? See how it switched? And if you go to major pentatonic, now it switches. You want to move to those notes. So this is really helpful in figuring out what scale you want to use for your melodies or for your track. And I think it's just extremely helpful that Ableton has this. You can Google this too. Like, let's say you have Ableton 9 and this is not an Ableton 9. Just go to Google. Just put, hey, what are the notes in the key of A minor or E minor or E major? And it'll give you those notes within the keyboard, and you just fill it out here. And that's it, plain and simple. All right, guys, so last but not least, we're going to talk about chords. We were on the topic of scales. I'm going to leverage that tool to visually show you what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and do a C minor scale. We're going to build chords off of that. So before we get started here, I would like to point out that I'm going to be using the Casa Volume 1 sound bank today, my favorite. And we're going to be using the Morenita Loca lead. I really enjoy this one. It was inspired by Hugo and that song Morenita. What do you know? It's in the name. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider going to croconation.com and looking at a wide selection of sound banks. I know it's helped me in my workflow and a couple of my buddies. I hope it does the same for you. So enough of that. Let's get back to business. So the chords that we're going to be talking about today are going to be called triad. And we're only going to be talking about the major and minor chords. So I know there's a seventh and a suspended or whatever. We're not doing all that. Diminished chords. We're not getting into that. Just basic major and minor chords. So the way that you build that is we're going to start off with the root note. So let's say you're in the key of C minor. So once we do that, we're going to go into something called intervals. Intervals are just the spaces between the notes. So we're going to go through half steps. Half steps mean that it's one note above, right? You just count every single key. And then whole steps are two notes ahead, right? But let's focus on the half steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to count, for a minor chord, we're going to count first 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. If you notice that this is highlighted here, right? Well, there's 2 scale tools helping us out. So we're going to go to an E flat. Now we're going to count, after this, we're going to count 4 half steps. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're at a G. So a C minor chord is going to sound like this. So I should probably back up and explain a triad. A triad is essentially a chord, but it's 3 notes played simultaneously. So this is going to be a C minor chord, and this spacing between the notes, the intervals that I'm telling you about, applies to any key. If I'm in G minor, I just follow the same intervals. 3 half steps, and then followed by 4 half steps. Same deal. Now, let's say we're going to go to C major. I want a major chord, nice and happy, right? Look at that. It's not highlighted. That means we need to switch things up. I don't know if you noticed that it's not flat anymore. It's sharp. That's a different topic for music theory. But what we're going to do to get a C major chord or any major chord, we're going to follow this interval sequence. So it's going to be a little bit reversed. It's going to be, instead of 3 half steps and then 4 half steps, it's going to be 4 half steps and then 3 half steps. So the only note by theory that should change is this right here, this D sharp. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 half steps. What do you know? And then we're going to count 3 here. 1, 2, 3. This one stays the same. You notice it just went up half a step. If you bring it down 1, minor, major. And once again, guys, this is going to work with all keys, right? Last thing I'm going to talk about is, because a question comes up, well, how do I know what chord comes next? Let's say I'm here, I'm in C major, right? How do I know what chord I can play next? Well, that's an excellent question. You can follow this wonderful chart that we have here, and you can Google this and just find out, hey, what chords can I play within the key of C? Let's stick with C major here, right? So if you're in C major here, you can play C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, right? And that's what these little M's mean, if you guys don't know that. But there's gonna be the 1, the 2, the 3, 4, 5, and the 6. And so with that being said, you can mix and match any of these chords within your song. So I think the most popular chord progression, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think it's the 1, right? The root note, the 5, the 6, and the 4, in that order. But yeah, you can mix and match and mess around with that, but just make sure you're in key, guys. This is a great reference to figure out what chord you're gonna play and so forth. And it has every key on here, which is really cool. All right, guys, that's it. I hope that was helpful. If you did find this helpful, please consider following us or subscribing. As far as these tips go, these are just very basic beginner tips that I think will help you move forward with your music production, right? Be creative and really use some of the technical abilities to be creative. This is gonna be subjective. I think in anything, it's 80% technicality and 20% is creativity. The 80% feeds the 20%, right? So let's build these technical skills so then that way you can produce better music. Plain and simple, you know what I'm saying? And with that being said, I'm out of here. Take care, guys.